All right. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Wall Street Rundown. I'm your co-host, Billy. I got Wale with me. What's good, Wale?
What's up, everybody?
Hey, man, let's take a look at how the market moved this week and what really drove some of the action, man. Overall, man, this week, Wall Street finally caught some fresh air. I mean, if you guys think about last week versus this week, we saw some crazy moves, man. All three major indexes, S&P 500, the Dow Jones, the Nasdaq, they all bounced back after like a rough stretch last week. We saw some steady green across the board. I think investors got a little more confident about where things are headed. You kind of gonna see the reflection of that in the market. So some of those things are gonna help a little bit. We have the rate cut hopes are back, right? So traders, we spent most of the week this week betting on the Fed to maybe actually cut rates in December. I think it was off the table. Now it's back on the table again. So the optimism kind of pushed things a little bit through. And then the yields actually went lower, man, and opened the door for even riskier assets to kind of be able to breathe again. So when rates drops, growth and tech usually shine. That's exactly what we saw. We saw tech kind of bounce a little bit. We saw some of those growth, stock kind of bounce, except for NVIDIA. NVIDIA kind of got a little bit shake up, right? Because of the Google and Meta thing. We'll talk about it a little bit, but NVIDIA is probably one of the biggest losers this week. But we'll see, man. We'll see how exactly going to look like. So again, after cooling down for a little bit, the tech stock, especially the AI names, they made back a solid comeback, man. So some of the big cap actually helped kind of carry the market over a little bit. Again, we were seeing a lot of those moves are concentrated in the AI segment in the tech center. So we see a lot of those kind of going up also. So outside of tech, if you guys were paying attention, man, retail and consumer focused stocks, they had a strong showing too. With holiday shopping coming up, it looks like investors are kind of maybe dabbling in some of those other retail stock that's kind of carrying the market a little bit. So we've seen some of those kind of move a little bit also today this week. But with that being said, man, Wale, man, give us a breakdown because we talked about this last week. We said that don't take this as a sign that AI is bad. We talked about this, right? And then last week when we were dropping it, I saw a lot of people, man, the bubble has popped, the bubble has popped. And I was like, guys, like you guys are not focusing on the broader, use of this technology. You guys are focusing
Correct.
only on the stocks. But if you take your eyes off the stock, look at the bigger picture. Even if we had a pullback shortly, which is it's okay. It's okay to have pullback. It is perfectly fine for you know those big investors to take profit. We at the end of the year, for God's sake, like people need to book some of those profit and recycle it somewhere else. So
hmm
when you see things dropping like this, it's not this is a bubble and like that. So let's talk a little bit about that, man.
Yeah, so I keep trying to, I always want to put things in perspective and to give people an idea of what an actual bubble is. Remember, to me, and maybe your definition is different, but a bubble is when something inflates that has no inside substance, right? There is substance behind AI. But what I keep saying is that could it be an overestimation? An overestimation of how you're projecting things or giving guidance on something doesn't necessarily mean it's a bubble. You probably just overestimate it, right? And if you overestimate it and things come back, it doesn't necessarily mean that whatever you're producing or whatever you're doing, or whatever you're investing in is fictitious, right? Because again, when I think of bubbles, I think of things that are being inflated with no substance. The mortgage
Yep.
crisis was a bubble because people were getting mortgages that didn't necessarily need to get mortgages. The whole dot-com bubble was because there were companies that had no revenue, that had no product, there was no substance behind these companies. There is substance behind all of these AI companies, right? There is a use case for AI. People are using it. The question is the demand what people are projecting it to be? Is that accurate? Yes or no?
Yep.
And only time will tell. So, like I said, I am still a believer in the use case of AI, whether or not it reaches the $1 trillion mark that everybody's projecting for the next 5 to 10 years. Who knows? I don't know. But
Yep. Yep.
I'm not abandoning it in things and calling things a bubble. Now, Michael Burry thinks that people are cooking the books. And if you're again trying to dissect the use case or the how should I put it, the credibility of the books that are being audited, then that's a completely different story. I'm not an
Mm-hmm.
accountant. I'm not an auditor, so I'm not going to sit there and go into details about, how that will play out. But we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'll just let that play out. But I will say that um, when we look at how the markets have performed over the last couple of days, going back to what you said, profit taking towards the end of the year, especially when you're looking at where stocks were in April compared to where stocks are now, some of these gains are above
Them
100%.
people made good money.
Correct. So if you're a portfolio manager managing other people's money, the prudent move is you have to book some profits.
Yep.
So we'll see how everything plays out. But there are some. I think Kathy Wood made a big bet on Google. I don't know whether it'll play out or not because she's always kind of late to the party. That's kind of her MO. So she kind of bought
Or exit early
or exit
in case of
early.
NVIDIA. Yeah.
So I think she got into Google at its all-time high. Now I'm not saying that Google's going to come back down or it can't push higher,
Right.
but her timing seems a little bit off. So we'll see what happens with Google and NVIDIA, but we'll go into more detail about what's going on with that.
Yep. Yep.
The I'm a big believer. This is my thing. I don't know why everybody was saying that the Fed may not cut rates. Actually, I kind of know why. They were kind of saying that they didn't have enough data, so maybe
Yep. Yep.
they were going to get scared. But I will say this, the Fed has been really focused on unemployment. And if I'm not mistaken, unemployment now is at 4.4%,
Yep.
which is in line with what they projected a couple of months ago.
Hmm.
They were expecting unemployment to go up, and I think we're hearing more companies are laying people off. I think HP is laying some more people off,
Yep.
right?
HP. I forgot. I think Oracle also. Somebody else announced also too that
Yeah,
they're laying some more people off. So
correct. So with that being said, because they've been so focused on unemployment, to me, I really think that they're going to cut in December, and I don't think they're going to take that off the table. So I'm expecting them to cut rates, and once we kind of got that optimism, man, go look at the run that IWM has been on the last 4 days.
yes.
IWM has been on a pretty um, really good climb. A few of us hit some really big gains today trading IWM.
Mhm.
So I'd be keeping an eye on small caps because if we start to see people selling out of large caps and selling those winners, to me, I think small caps could be a place where money starts to flow into.
Yep. Yep.
We saw money flow into healthcare and biotech. Man, go look at Merck over the last like 2 weeks, climbed over $100 a share. And then also to another area that you mentioned is retail, quality retail
Retail.
though, not
Quality
all
retail.
retail,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
because not all retail is doing good, but the Gap, Burlington, and I think Best Buy are three retail names that produced really good earnings this last quarter that could see more inflows over the next couple of and going into 2026.
Yep. But overall, man, like you say, IWM has been on a crazy, crazy, crazy run. Like this week alone, if you just look at that chart, I think we were down to like two. Let me see, where were we at? I think it was like 230 something. And then
Hmm.
we came back like crazy. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think the lowest we hit this week was wait, 228? Are you serious? No, that's not right. That was last week. Last week we hit a low of 228.
Yeah, 228.90 was a low for last week, and then if you look at the last 4 days, man,
We moved $20 because I think we hit a high like 240, almost 248 today.
yeah.
But in two
So
weeks, not even 2 weeks, in 1 week, we moved to $20.
and
It's
we're
crazy.
about we're about $5 away from the all-time
All
high.
time high. Yep. Yep. So
Shane,
again, there's
Shane,
opportunities, man.
yeah, Shane also says that KSS, I think Coles,
Yep.
Coles had another big gain
Monster day.
in their earnings report. They jumped from about 15 a share to 24 over the last 2 days.
Yeah, but also you got to think about with some of those retail stock, they're heavily shorted, right? So it's like
That's
when
true. Yes.
whenever like they do a good numbers, when people start buying them and stuff, the shorts have to cover their position, and the stock just goes up like parabolic. You know what I mean? So that's another thing you guys got to keep be mindful of. Also, it's not necessarily because it's like sometimes it's not necessarily 'cause it's like a good company where they're like doing good. It's just like they
Short
report
sellers
good
covering.
earnings. Yep, and people start buying it, and somebody knows that they're heavily shorted, so it's like sure got to cover their position. So
Yeah.
yeah, but apart from that, man, like you said, there's a lot of opportunities, man. I feel like if you miss one, you can always find another one. That's the good thing about stock market. Like if you're really patient, you don't have to trade every single time. You don't have to trade every day. You don't have to trade every week. You can wait for some of those opportunities. Even last week when the market was dropping, I rather took a lot of trades. You know what I mean? Because even if it's dropping, you can probably kind of catch here and there, but it's like it was more like scalping type of weather. This week, I think if you would have swung IWM, you would have got paid really nicely. You know what I mean? If you would have swung some of those other little stocks or even tech stocks, you would have got paid. You got paid nicely. So again, opportunities all over, man. And speaking of the big caps, let's go ahead and talk about Meta and Google. So Meta is reportedly in talks to spend billions of dollars on Google's AI chips, the TPUs. Again, I like that chart you put on your Instagram page, GPUs versus TPUs. Very, very educational. But it's the Meta's basically trying to get those TPUs for their data centers, right? Potentially starting in 2027 or even renting them via Google Cloud next year. So, as a result of that news, man, go look at Google. Google spike. Some analysts now view Google as a serious challenger to legacy AI hardware leader NVDA, right? On the flip side, NVIDIA share kind of dropped after that Meta news. So we
and
see like,
AMD.
and AMD also. So again, there's one winner in this whole solution in this whole situation, and I think you're gonna touch base on that. But there's one winner that if you guys pay attention, I'm telling you, that's gonna be the next multi-trillion-dollar company. But keep an eye on that. So let's talk about that, man. Meta and Google and the shifts in the hardware balance when it comes to chips.
So we talked about this a few episodes ago, where we were talking about how some of these hyperscalers will have been starting to design their own chips
Yeah.
and whether or not that would eat into NVIDIA's dominance in that space. Because Amazon is working on their own chips. We've mentioned Google's been working on their own chips. So some of these companies are trying to find less expensive options and trying to move away from their dependence from NVIDIA. Now, what's the difference between a GPU and a TPU? So there's a lot of things that are different. I'm just going to highlight a few things. So GPUs, they're mostly made by NVIDIA and AMD. Those are the two dominant companies that are in that market. TPUs are made by Alphabet. Now, this is a proprietary type of chip that is usually built for Google Cloud. So if you're not a Google Cloud customer, the TPU probably doesn't make that much sense to you, right? Another thing about GPUs is GPUs are very flexible, right? They're general purpose. They can be used for different things such as AI training, AI inference, HPC simulations, crypto, and other things, right? So very flexible, works on any machine learning model, and then massive software ecosystem. Now, the one thing that there's problem with them is that it's very expensive and they use a lot of energy. TPUs, they're fast, but they're usually built upon Google's proprietary stuff.
Yep.
They're insanely efficient for training large language models. For Meta, Meta has been trying to train large language models themselves. And I think for them, it makes a lot of sense. Power usage is lower compared to GPUs, but the thing is, they're not as adaptable. They're usually designed and built for specific purposes. And what people have been saying is that the companies that TPUs make more sense for are like the hyperscalers, right? Because again, they're specific for certain types of use cases,
Yep.
and they're not that adaptable. A GPU, again, it's like a Swiss Army knife. You can use that thing for all kind of different things. So if you want flexibility, it's going to cost you more,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you want something very, very specific, you might be able to spend less money, but remember, you're not going to have as much adaptability on how you're going to be able to use that technology. So those are some of the biggest differences that I just wanted to discuss between GPUs and TPUs. Now, whether or not the TPU, you know, market will eat into NVIDIA's earnings, we don't know. But I will say this though, this is probably why NVIDIA committed all that money to OpenAI and some of these other um, large language model companies so that they don't pivot to Google. They was like, we're
Yep.
gonna lock you guys in
Yep.
now so you guys don't pivot to another
Yep.
provider. So that was a strategic move by Jensen Huang. We've been saying I kind of feel he's like two steps ahead of everybody. Um, but I will say this though, if Google can find enough companies where their TPU chips make sense in their use cases, to me, Google might start to become one of the more dominant technology companies because we all know that the next level from where we are with AI is what do you call it? Quantum.
Quantum. Yep.
And we know that Google's already playing in the quantum space, right?
Yep. I can
I don't
guarantee you Nvidia's already in there.
I know Nvidia is there, but we don't know what their play is right now.
Right, right.
We know what Google's play is right now. So Google has now overtaken Microsoft as the third largest company in valuation by market cap.
Mhm.
That could continue over the next couple of years. I mean, they got to overtake Apple, which to me, I don't think will be that hard, in my honest opinion. But
Right.
Google is really onto something. And the thing about Google that I like is that their revenue comes from a lot of diverse places. YouTube, search. Now you've got this possible, chip, um, you know, rollout that they're working on. So we'll see what happens. But as we always said, the biggest winner, whether or not if NVIDIA is dominant or Google is dominant, guess who's manufacturing those chips?
TSM.
TSM.
Yep. Yep.
TSM is the winner because from what I'm being told, TSM is still going to be the leader or the manufacturer for those chips.
Yep.
So that's why I keep saying TSM is the most important tech company in this whole build out because if you need chips built, chances are TSM is who you're going to.
Every time. You have nobody else. But again, like I think if you are not trying to chase some of these big stock that already have moved on and like Nvidia or even Google and all that stuff, if you focus on TSM, they are the builders. You know what I mean? They Nothing can move without them, basically. All these other companies design, but TSM actually get to manufacture, get to make the actual design, right? And that field, I feel like there's not a lot of competition. I mean, you have Intel. Who else you have? They have
Samsung,
Samsung, but those are names that's not it's although there is well known, but it's not as big as TSM. TSM actually has the capability to do, and they're building more factory in the US also. So on top of that, like they're able to chart in some of those chips a lot faster than anybody else. But
yeah,
again, very, very big sleeper in my opinion. This is sitting at 291. The high was 312.95. So we still, I mean, honestly, man, I don't know. We'll see it the next year or two and see how this stock actually does because it's still kind of like if you look at the overall, it's just consolidating. It hasn't really gone anywhere.
yeah, yeah.
You
Ever
know,
since it made that new high on October 16th, it hasn't gone anywhere.
no,
So
it's
to me,
consolidating.
and if you look at the monthly chart shows that it basically just respected that big fair value gap
Yep,
between 277 and 247.
yep,
So I'd be looking at that area. If it retests this area anytime soon, that'd be probably an area where I get real interested in it. So we'll see. TSM, $1 trillion company. I think it's well on its way to 2 trillion. Over the next couple of years. I don't know how soon it will get there.
right.
But I'm between them and Broadcom. If I were to bet, I'd probably say maybe TSM makes it there before Broadcom. We don't
Broadcom.
know. I don't
Yep,
know, but because I think
Broadcom.
Broadcom is also a partner in Google in manu
Yep,
in this chip build up. I don't know exactly what they're doing with Google, but I don't think that they're the manufacturer of the chips. But we'll see. But yeah, Broadcom and TSM, those are names that to me they're under the $2 trillion mark, and I think both of those companies could be well on their way to like the $2 trillion mark over the next
yep.
couple of years. So
And they did really well today, man. They were up like almost 4%. I mean, 3.5%. So it's
Yeah,
crazy.
AVGO has had a monster year. I think it's been up one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8 consecutive months. This was
Hmm.
$138 stock in April
Yep.
and
Did
almost
they
hit
have a split? I think they had a split, right? Well, that wasn't
couple
them.
years, I think it was last year they had a split.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was last year they had a split.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah, that split happened on in 2024.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
But again, there's opportunities, man. Like, if you want to focus on the big players, focus on the small players that support the big players, and those what the opportunities are gonna be basically. But yeah, TSM, man, you heard that name here. I'm telling you.
yeah. And we did a review of their
Yep.
financials last week. And again, the financials are strong. So to me, I want to see, I think one of the biggest things that I want to see is when those Arizona
Plants.
factories go live, what the output of TSM's ability start to look like
Yep.
in increasing their manufacturing output. Because I think that those factories are going to be very, very important if the demand continues to move the way it's been moving. So
Facts. Yep. Well, with that being said, I mean, next week, again, remember tomorrow the market is closed. It's Thanksgiving. So, and then Friday, I think we only open to 1 p.m. Eastern if you're in the Eastern
Eastern,
time zone.
yeah,
So, it's not a full day of the market. But again, tomorrow close early on Friday. Looking ahead of next week, some of the economic calendar that we have. Not a lot of stuff on Monday. I think we have ISM manufacturing, then we have the auto sales, and then, of course, we have the ADP employment numbers actually coming up on Wednesday. We have the import price index. I'll be curious to see what that number looks like. Uh, and then we have the initial jobless claim, of course, comes out on Thursdays. And then we have PCE index delayed report. That's going to come out on Friday, December 5th. And then we have core PCE, also another delayed report. That's of September. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting to keep an eye on.
we were supposed to get some GDP numbers this week and they canceled it.
They cancel
So,
it. They probably
well,
didn't have the correct numbers.
we'll see if they cancel any more
uh,
data going into next
uh,
week. I don't think I've ever seen that happen before, where they're just like,
man,
you know what, we're just not going to release it.
we're just not gonna give it to you. Like, deal with it. But
That's wild.
yeah, I mean, I hope we actually get some of those numbers, man. I mean, I see like in the jobless numbers are coming in now, and they're starting to support more rate cut. You know what I mean? So it's like it's I guess it's a good thing that we seen some of those evidence already, and then more layoffs is happening too. So if you look at all across the companies, a lot of companies are laying, especially big tech companies are all laying out people. So that's another thing to keep an eye on.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
well,
But
go ahead.
the one thing I will say with this rally, even though technology has been getting a lot of the attention, right? The RSP has also still been moving. The RSP has been up the last 4 days, and the RSP is $2 within the all-time high. So again, if you ever want to see whether or not you can trust a rally, look at the equal weight S&P 500. RSP is a good indicator to look at that. And when you see that the broader market is also moving, typically you can trust that rally. So, even though NVDA was one of the bigger losers of the week, we still pretty, when you look
Still
at
pretty good.
the market still did pretty good this week. So, um, you know, don't uh, don't let headline news scare you all the time when it comes to looking for opportunities. I will
Yep.
say that I will leave with this though. So there is an indicator that I look at. I am a big believer in that the bond market is a better indicator of the economic health in the stock market. One of the indicators that I look at is kind of in a zone where it says pay attention.
Mm,
Not saying get scared, not saying doom and gloom, but it's saying pay attention. So we're getting to levels where we're kind of leveling off, which is good, but we're getting to levels where you just have to be very cautious. So I'm going to continue to monitor it. I check it every Friday. It has elevated a little bit, so I will leave it at that. Again, bond spreads are very, very key to determining how much risk is priced into the market. So if you are in our group, I've given everybody a pretty good description on what to look for, so you can know whether or not you need to, start hedging your long-term portfolio or not.
Facts, facts. Well, I want to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully, you guys have a good time with the family tomorrow. Chill out, disconnect, relax your brain, focus. Even Friday, Friday might, we might not see a lot of actions on Friday, honestly. But
Maybe low volume.
yep. So again, that's another day to maybe like chill and just kind of relax and not do anything. But any last minute advice going to next week at all or anything like that?
Nah, not nothing right now. I will
Okay.
say this is probably now a good time to start thinking about how much taxes you got to pay if you're a trader.
Yeah.
So
Don't remind me.
don't wait till the last minute.
Don't
So
remind me of that, man. I'm gonna
start
take some of that gain and give it back.
start figuring that out right now, because
Yep.
it's not always happy. It's not always a happy time of the year, but if you're paying taxes back, just know that it means you
You
made
made
money.
money. You made money. That's the only positive. You got to think about it that way. You got to think
Yeah.
about it that way. Well, yeah, that's a wrap for today's episode, the Wall Street Rundown. We talked through big stories from Meta and Google to NVIDIA's impact on the chip gain. We looked at some of the economic calendar coming out next week to make sure that you're ready, you're not surprised. And also, as always, man, make sure you guys follow, share the show with people, and be able to have some more people join us. So, as always, my name is Billy. Shout out to my brother Wale. We'll be back again. I don't know if we're gonna be doing Friday, but we'll see.
We'll see.
We
Maybe not Friday. If not Friday, we'll see you
we'll
guys
back
next
we'll
week,
back
Wednesday.
next week Wednesday. Until then, stay sharp, stay disciplined. We'll catch you guys on the next one.